Hello everyone, welcome to the Ginger Snaps here. My name is Steven. Now in my previous video I had reviewed in the Terminator franchise, it was Terminator Salvation. And of course that movie came out in 2009, and as we all know there's 6 Terminator films in the franchise, so what ended up happening between 2009 and then onward? What happened? Well, of course the Terminator franchise kept, going through rights disputes, legal ownership, and all this kind of hoo-ha whatnot. And of course with the mediocre reception that Salvation had gotten, it was kind of hard to continue a movie into the future when you were not going to have Christian Bale in it. You were not going to have any of the cast from Salvation come back. So what was going to be the only thing that you could do? And of course, one of the biggest things that obviously was the improvement of the next film that we're going to be talking about and Salvation was that this one featured Arnold Schwarzenegger in his most iconic role ever. That film ended up becoming Terminator Genisys, which was released in 2015, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Emilia Clarke, Jason Clarke, and Jai Courtney. Now, this film is kind of like split. There are people who love it, there are people who hate it. There's some people who are actually in the middle with this movie, and I'm, quite frankly, the people who's in the middle. The movie had a promising type of scenario where they were just going to wipe the slate clean and erased Terminator Salvation and shockingly Terminator 3 out of existence and focused strictly on T1 and T2. Now, interesting enough, there's a lot of movies that have done that where they just erased other fucking sequels in the franchise. I mean, most notably Halloween when they came out with H2O. It wiped the slate clean. It was a sequel to Halloween 2. Now, of course, with Terminator, it's kind of a little bit of a different story because this is where I sound like a broken fucking record, where it's like, the ending of T2 wrapped up in such a nice, beautiful bow that it was kind of hard to make a sequel. Well, these guys tried their fucking hardest to make sure that something could establish for Terminator Genisys and how this movie could be made. When it did come out, of course, a lot of people were a little bit negative, a lot of people were a little bit responsive, some people got it, some people didn't. I was in the middle where I did get it, but there are certain things that really pissed me off about the whole entire movie. So, enough rambling, let's talk about Terminator Genisys. One of the strong points in this movie is actually the beginning of the film. Of course, everyone knows that it's Kyle Reese's narration of how Judgment Day came to be. He, is fighting the war with John Connor. They get to this base that is having a secret weapon being used at the time. Kyle Reese doesn't know it, and John Connor does know it. And when the machines finally fall, it's already too late. They get down to the underground bunker and find out there's a time machine. So that, this is where you find out that the Terminator was sent back to 1984, and then Kyle Reese also volunteers to go back to 1984. But there's this twist in the whole entire thing where when the Terminator gets there and he's about to acquire his clothes, he is stopped by another Terminator. What the fuck happened there? That wasn't in the first film, right? Obviously not. And then, of course, Kyle Reese, he has that scene where, he asks the police officer, what year is it, what date? And, the officer responds by May 12th, 1984, the day you arrived. And it turns out it's a T-1000. So now you have blended Terminator and Terminator 2 in a big fucking opening. You're like, oh, fuck, I want to see how this goes. But then the thing about the strong opening is that there's something that comes up where it's just like, okay, something has changed. Something's off. And then, of course, I have to get to the explanation after Kyle Reese was sent in time. Before Kyle Reese was even sent back into time, he sees that John Connor was attacked by someone and he doesn't know what the fuck happens. And then during the time travel, he now remembers a different past, a past where the bombs never fell. He actually was living like a child, and then instead of Skynet, there's Genisys. Like, what the fuck is all this meaning? And he's even trying to convince Sarah and Pops, the T-800, that we can't go forward in time to 1997. We have to go back to 2017. And he's sure of it, and everything about that, like, the timeline has now changed. There's something that even the Terminator gets it. Like the timeline has changed. Now, it's interesting in theory, but then you see some loopholes later on down the film that really fucking questioned this film and what it was trying to accomplish. And before I even talk any more about the film, let's get into how I feel about each character in this film. Of course, let's start things off with the T-800 himself, Pops, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator himself. He does very well in this fucking movie. I mean, like, I went to go see this movie for him. Like, it's Terminator, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm a big fan. I'm gonna go see it. I mean, I felt robbed from Terminator Salvation. Now, of course, when it comes to Terminator Genisys, it was nice to establish the whole, how come this Terminator looks a lot older? Why does he look old? And it gives off the great explanation of, Terminators are made with human skin, but the skin does age. Not as fast as real human skin age, but it does still age. But this still doesn't explain why he was there in 1984 before another Terminator showed up. Well, it turns out he was sent back even further in time to 1973 to protect Sarah Connor when she was a child from the T-1000 who killed her parents, and he has raised her ever since. Now, of course, when it comes to the humor of this movie, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he does okay. But eventually, at some point, it's kind of like he was not quite shoved to the side. But he was a focal point. He was kind of used as a... I don't want to say side plot, but he was mainly used for either comic relief or for the intent of action to be a lot better, because when it comes to the other cast, two people in particular, it just doesn't go well. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger doing his normal thing with, saying, I'll be back. It's always granted. And then, of course, getting the battle damage, making a sacrifice, everything. It's just always good. It always warms my heart to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in these movies. It's the first time I ever saw him in a movie like this when I was a kid. He's my idol. So when it comes to Arnold Schwarzenegger's performance in this movie, I do give it a 5 out of 5 just because of how good it is. I mean, yeah, there's humor in it, but what do you expect? It's not his fault. He's not the one who wrote the script. So Arnold Schwarzenegger's performance does get a 5 out of 5. Up next, we are going to be talking about Jason Clarke playing John Connor in this film. Of course, he is the 5th John Connor in the film's franchise. We had the 2 John Connors in Terminator 2, the adult in the very beginning, and Edward Furlong. Then, of course, Nick Stahl in Terminator 3, and Christian Bale in Terminator Salvation. So he had a lot of shoes to fill, and of course, as we all know, Edward Furlong, to me, is the definitive John Connor. As Jason Clarke's portrayal of John Connor, I do like it. It's a very great John Connor. It's like, okay, I'm actually surprised that this John Connor had more to say. He was more of a leader in this movie than Christian Bale's was. Like, you don't hear the fucking, Batman gurgly voice, whatever. And you don't hear the constant complaining of Nick Stahl. But, of course, this is a very different type of John Connor. Of course, this is a very different type of film. Of course, as we all know, since the trailer spoiled it for everybody, John Connor is then attacked by Skynet himself, and of course, he is then turned into the T-5000, who then travels back to travels in time to 2014, and then, makes sure that Genisys, aka Skynet, becomes a thing. And he, I guess, is the owner, and he's also helping Miles Dyson's son, Danny Dyson, to achieve Genisys. It's a new app that runs everything, and of course in this movie, everyone is glued to their phones, they're glued to their devices, and it really is one of those things where it's like, okay, at least I see where they're going with this one now. But what they did with this movie when it came to John Connor and Jason Clarke playing John Connor is that he did very good in the very beginning. And then they made him become the villain. Now, this was spoiled in the trailer, and god-awful fucking excuse to now change what has already been established as the Terminator franchise. Now you just took humanity's greatest hero and turned him into Skynet's greatest weapon. And it rips everything from what Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 had talked about and had shown. And, it was such a departure. I mean, a lot of people do like the fact that John Connor became the villain, but a lot of other people didn't. It was just wrong. And to me, I'm on the middle. It was a very interesting aspect to do to change something, but also at the same time, it was very unwanted. Why did you make John Connor become the villain? And of course, there's a lot of fucking loopholes when it comes to him becoming the villain. I mean, like, okay, first things first, he was attacked and he was sent to 2014 and he had scars on his face the whole fucking time, and then all of a sudden, oh, they just magically disappear, but no one notices. Don't believe it. As for my thoughts on Jason Clarke's playing John Connor or the T-5000, it's okay. I do kind of give it a 3.5 out of 10, or 3.5 out of 5, just because of the fact that he did do a solid John Connor, like ramping up the resistance. But when it became known that he's now the villain, it kind of just goes downhill after that. It's just like now he's just there to be the villain of the whole entire movie. And of course, like I said, it was spoiled in the trailer. Like they showed that. That could have been a twist that could either make or break your movie. Granted, yes, but then when you show it in the trailer, it made not many people go see the movie in theaters now because they just found out John Connor became the villain. That makes no fucking sense. And of course, to me, I was a fan. I didn't care. I'm going to go see it anyways. I'm going to support this movie no matter what. So as my take on Jason Clarke's portrayal of John Connor, I do give it a 3.5 out of 5. Also, coming back to the franchise is Sarah Connor herself. Not played by Linda Hamilton, but played by Emilia Clarke. I know a lot of people love her portrayal when it comes to Sarah Connor in this movie, but this is the one thing where I now have to go back to what I said on like Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and say like they should have replaced Catherine Brewster or Kate Brewster, Kate Connor, whoever, with Sarah Connor. This movie got Sarah Connor back, but she became the most least liked fucking character in this whole fucking movie. Why? Well, I mean, let's face facts. Let's face it, Terminator fans. Let's face it. She was only casted because she was in Game of Thrones. I mean, you go watch the behind the scenes. They all fucking wanted to cast her because they were big fans of fucking Game of Thrones. That's how she got the role, was Game of Thrones. And now, what about her portrayal of Sarah Connor? It's utter trash. Complete utter fucking trash. Okay? She does not play Sarah Connor the way that we all thought Sarah Connor would be. Of course, yes, there's the whole time thing where it's like, oh, a Terminator came back in time in 1973 to protect her when she was a kid. Or whatever. But when Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor, became a badass in Terminator 2, she wasn't a snibbly little brat. Okay? She wasn't. This one, she's a fucking brat. She's complaining about how, oh, I don't get to make any choices about my future. And she's so fucking demanding in this fucking movie. Like, telling people to shut up, you know. Fucking just blurting out fucking orders left, right, and center. She became, like, even when I watched this movie in 2015 to now, I can't stand her in this movie. She did not have the essence of Sarah Connor whatsoever. You just played a fucking woman character who felt like, oh, well, I'm fucking important, so I'm gonna boss everyone around. I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. And the one thing that I know a lot of people probably never even caught on to the fact is that in every fucking scene I had seen of this fucking movie, Emilia Clarke legitly is wearing fucking makeup in almost every fucking scene. If you don't believe me and you have troubles with the thought of that, like, no, come on. I mean, all actresses always wear makeup, whatever. But she's wearing makeup throughout the whole fucking time, because if you look at her in Game of Thrones and you look at her in any other projects, she's a lot more paler. But you can see the foundation on her skin in one fucking scene, one close-up. You can see it. And it bothered me. It's like, why the fuck is she wearing fucking makeup? I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because, you know, on the set they're like, oh, we gotta pound you up with fucking makeup here and make you look very beautiful because you're Emilia Clarke. At the end of the day, I just never fucking liked her. Okay, not because of her work of Game of Thrones. I get it, whatever. I never watched the fucking show. But just the fact that at this time she took some time off to do a Terminator franchise. You can obviously tell in this movie she is not familiar with the franchise. I mean, you could thank Game of Thrones for that, but I'm pretty sure she's never went and seen the other 4 Terminator films. She just knows who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. Okay, she only knows who he is. Oh, you did a Terminator film, whatever. But she probably never seen it. She has no drive for Sarah Connor. She was unbelievable. Like, I couldn't believe her as Sarah Connor. I know there's a lot of actors in this whole franchise. I'd say I don't believe this actor playing this character. I just don't believe it. This is the piss poor portrayal of Sarah Connor. Because this was not Sarah Connor. It was hard to say this was Sarah Connor. This was literally, to me, a character who just named herself Sarah. Who ironically enough, was named Sarah Connor. I don't look at her as Sarah Connor. No, there was no way in hell she was ever fucking Sarah Connor in this movie. She was kind of a bitch. Like a real fucking bitch. And it's hard to get behind someone who was only casted for a very popular and very famous strong female role only because you were in Game of Thrones. Moving on to now Jai Courtney, who played Kyle Reese in this movie. What are my thoughts on Kyle Reese being played by Jai Courtney? Of course, as we all, Anton Yelchin playing him in Salvation. Of course, Michael Biehn playing him in Terminator. It's kind of hard to kind of one-up Michael Biehn when it comes to Kyle Reese. Now, of course, when I had my doubts with Kyle Reese in the beginning when this movie first came out. But, you know, giving it a nice rewatch, I do understand why they casted him for this movie. And, I mean, it's what I think hurt it the most was the fact that he was the son of Bruce Willis in A Good Day to Die Hard. He was in a lot of other fucking movies after that. Of course, he's also playing Captain Boomerang in the Suicide Squad. And that, I feel, is the one role that he was perfect for. Now, my decision on Jai Courtney playing Kyle Reese is still, to this day, not the greatest. Because, I mean, like, with Emilia Clarke, she takes top bill as the worst actor or actress in this whole fucking movie. And the one character who was badly miscast. This one I feel like they fucked up on. I feel like, because, you know, Jai Courtney has a blank, emotionless face. He almost seems like he could be perfect as a Terminator, don't you think? Jai Courtney played Kyle Reese. Like, of course, he's unassuming. Like, you know, he was told one thing, and now so much shit has changed. And he's kind of like a punching bag in this movie. That was the other thing that really pissed me off about Emilia Clarke's character. She essentially was pushing Kyle Reese around. And, you know, pretty much making him look like a fucking idiot, left, right, and center. Like, you know, wouldn't even let him talk. Like, you gotta understand, he is fucking confused. Like, I was told this, and this has happened. And she's practically telling him, okay, you're fucking stupid. Like, okay. And, you know, I'm just not quite sold on him being Kyle Reese, especially with his blank monotone voice and blank facial features when he's acting in this movie. I feel like he could have been a Terminator at this rate. So for me, for Jai Courtney's performance as Kyle Reese, I'm just giving it as a solid 3. Maybe a 3.5 out of 10. You know what? I'm gonna change my ranking. For Jai Courtney, I'm giving him a 3.5 out of 10. Because originally I gave him a 3, but I do actually kind of enjoy him as Kyle Reese. It's not the best, but you know, I'll live with it. I mean, if you just take Emilia Clarke out of there, I guarantee it would have been a lot better for his fucking portrayal as Kyle Reese. Enough rambling for me anymore. Like, when it comes to the action, it's, you know, it's okay. You know, the action's all right. I mean, everything you saw in the trailer is what you saw in the action. It's not as great. I must be honest with myself. It's not the greatest action. Of course, you know, like when you've seen Terminator 2. You've seen Terminator 3. You've seen Terminator Salvation. You've seen the first Terminator. It's like there are certain things that you just like more about those other films than you like about this action. And I mean, like, a lot of these things, it's what you expect. It's action movies post 2010 where they started to get a little hokey. And yeah, when it comes to the action in this movie, I do accept it, but I've seen better. That's it. That has been my review on Terminator Genisys. Overall, with this movie, like I said, I am still split down the middle with this movie. There are certain aspects with this film itself, and that has been my review for Terminator Genisys. Of course, there are certain aspects with this movie where I fucking loved it and I fucking hated it. That's why I'm still in the middle. When it comes to the casting of Arnold Schwarzenegger back as the Terminator, it's always granted, it's always wanted. Jai Courtney kind of does okay for Kyle Reese, and of course John Connor when he was not the T-3000, it was okay. Like I could believe that Jason Clarke was a Terminator, or not a Terminator, the leader of the Resistance. I could believe Jason Clarke was John Connor. I can believe that. Of course, even the opening where it's Judgment Day, they go back to 1984, and then there's the fight between Kyle and the T-1000 or Kyle and the T-101. It was all great. But then, of course, then there's the negatives where you had pointless characters like Matt Smith's fucking T-5000 or Skynet or Genisys, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You have Emilia Clarke and her piss poor fucking brat bullshit fucking Sarah Connor portrayal. You have the overabundance of CGI that for some odd reason in the same franchise that did CGI well with T2 just didn't fucking hold up in Terminator Genisys. So with my rating of this movie, after giving it a watch, I remember when it first came out in 2015, I gave it a rating of like 8 out of 10. I'm now changing that because like I said, there are aspects of this movie I just can't fucking stand. And of course, I'm going to say it, Emilia Clarke was definitely the biggest factor. And of course, the biggest shit stain of them all of this movie is the fact that it erases Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 from existence. So I can't give it much respect for that. Now, of course, for ranking or rating when it comes to this film, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I do slightly enjoy this movie better than Salvation. Because Salvation, there were just a lot more fucking pointless characters, and as you can see, that film went nowhere. I do enjoy this movie. I did have a lot of respect for this movie. I did want to watch this movie when I was back in 2015, and I still didn't regret it. But also at the same time, it's still one of those films that you have to now start taking into consideration, which I will be addressing later on in a different video altogether. So, like I said, Terminator Genisys gets a 6 out of 10. So what did you guys think of this movie? Was this movie a hit or a miss for you? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Are you in between like I am? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that thumbs up if you like this video and also subscribe for more content. Other than that, that is it for me, guys. The next film we will be talking about is the final film in the Terminator franchise, Terminator Dark Fate. But until then, this has been the Ginger Snaps here. My name is Steven, and I will check you guys out later.